So now we're going to talk about the Pali tradition and the 10 paramis. So the treatise on the paramis, written by the great Pali commentator Dhammapala, and found in his commentary on the Karya Patika and the sub-commentary on the Brahmajala Sutra, explains the 10 paramis as bodhisattva practices. Dhammapala's audience and purpose were, quote, clansmen following the suttas who are zealously engaged in the practice of the vehicle to great awakening in order to improve their skillfulness in accumulating the collections or requisites for awakening. Okay, so he makes clear that he's not just talking to Joe Blow, but to people with a certain attitude, who are aspiring for awakening. Praising the Buddha for having completed the Bodhisattva path and becoming a fully awakened Buddha, Buddhaghosa comments, quote, the virtue of the perfections done for the liberation of all beings is superior. So already by Buddhaghosa's time, he was 1 century before Dhammapala. There's talk of the liberation of all beings. So this could have been influence from the Mahayana tradition in the north, or it could have been people seeing this in the Pali Suttas and bringing it out. The perfections are good qualities to cultivate, no matter which of the 3 vehicles we follow, and many people seeking arhatship practice them. Bodhisattvas must practice them more intensely and for a longer time to attain their spiritual goal. Disciples in the Theravada countries frequently praise their teachers for their great accumulation of paramis. So I heard that a lot when I was in Thailand, praise my teachers. They praise their teachers a lot for their metta and for their paramis. Buddhaghosa explains the progression from one perfection to the next. Having generated the 4 immeasurables, that's where you start out, bodhisattvas, number 1, give gifts, so perfection of generosity, which are sources of pleasure without discriminating thus. It must be given to this one. It must not be given to that one. Okay? So you could see it's underlain with equanimity. Okay. So that would be a nice way to give, wouldn't it? You just give instead of, we have planned giving in more than one way, We plan, I'll give it to that person because then they'll like me, and I won't give it to that person because they've already criticized me. And this person I'm competing with, so I don't want to give them a gift, but that other person there praises me, so I will give to them. That sound like us? No. Yeah. Okay. To avoid doing harm to beings, they undertake the precepts of ethical conduct. So that's the second. They praise renunciation. So this is the third in the sequence of the 10 paramis in the Pali tradition. They practice renunciation for the purpose of perfecting their ethical conduct. Yes, renunciation meaning, giving up the suffering caused by sensual desire. They cleanse their wisdom, so that's the fourth one, for the purpose of non-confusion about what is good and bad for beings. They constantly arouse effort, number 5, having beings' welfare and happiness at heart. When they have acquired heroic fortitude through supreme effort, they become patient with beings' many kinds of faults. Okay. They do not deceive, so that's the one of truthfulness. When promising, we shall give you this, we shall do this for you. They have unshakable determination for being's welfare and happiness. So in the paramis, it's determination. In the paramitas, it's unshakable resolve. Okay, it has pretty much the same meaning. Through unshakable love, they place others first. Through equanimity, they expect no reward. Having thus fulfilled the paramis, they perfect the good states classed as the 10 powers. So those are the 10 powers of the Buddha. They were listed when we talked about refuge before. The 4 kinds of fearlessness, also described under refuge. The 6 kinds of knowledge not shared by the hearers, that's also in the refuge section. And the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha, it's also there. Okay, so the 10 perfections share many characteristics. They function to benefit others, are motivated by the aspiration to attain awakening, and are done with a mind unpolluted by craving, conceit, and wrong views. Great compassion and skillful means, the wisdom transforming them into the requisites of awakening. So remember, requisites of awakening means the collection of merit and collection of wisdom. Okay. So the great compassion and skillful means, and here skillful means the wisdom transforming them into the requisites of awakening, are their proximate causes and accompany each of them. So this is showing, how they're similar. They all are motivated by bodhicitta. They're designed to benefit others. They're done with a mind unpolluted by craving, conceit, and wrong views. And compassion and skillful means are their proximate causes and accompany them. When contemplating the perfections, we should reflect, what afflictions do I need to be particularly on guard against when practicing each parami? What are the antidotes to that affliction? How can I energize mindfulness and introspective awareness to recognize the afflictions and apply their antidotes? So this is what we're already doing in our practice, isn't it? So you carry that on when you're practicing the perfections. To develop inner strength to complete the path, bodhisattvas offer themselves to the Buddhas. Okay, have we offered ourselves to the Buddhas? Yeah. In theory, by the mouth. Yeah, have we really offered ourselves to the Buddhas? Okay. So in the Pali tradition, when they describe when you go to generate serenity, again, you offer yourself to the Buddha. Yeah. So this idea of offering yourself to the Buddha, again, in both traditions. Okay, so that you offer yourself to the Buddha, then these bodhisattvas, if they encounter difficulties in practicing the paramis, for example, they lack the requisites for living, they're short on food or shelter or clothes or medicine, if they're insulted, if they experience illness or injury, or if they become exhausted. So while practicing the path, if you have a lot of obstacles coming up, they reflect, I have given myself to the Buddhas for the sake of awakening of all beings. Whatever comes, comes. What do we do when we eat, are short on food, clothing, medicine, when we have some difficulty in our practice?
It's not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair. How come I have this problem and other people don't? You should do this for me and that for me. Yeah, I can't practice unless I have 1, 2, 3, 115, 116. you know? Okay, so this is a very good technique that really helps the mind. If we give, our life or give ourselves to the Buddha, then if there's problems, we just reflect, I did this in order to attain awakening for the benefit of all beings, and whatever comes, comes, and I'm not going to worry about it, instead of freaking out. In this way, they trust the three jewels and have confidence in the law of karma and its effects. Not succumbing to fear or worry, they remain firm and determined to continue on the Bodhisattva path. Yeah. So you see why it's so important before you do long retreat to have a lot of practice under your belt. Yeah. Because we're kind of romantic, I want to go do a 3-day retreat right away. But if you don't have a lot of practice under your belt, as soon as there's some small problem, then we completely crumble. And we just, I can't do this. This is awful. Whereas if you've done a lot of practice and you really have, you've been able to learn the antidotes to the afflictions and how to manage your afflictions, then when problems come, you just apply the antidote, you know how to practice, and you continue. Okay? So you can really see the value here of doing things in a step-by-step order, creating a good foundation instead of being romantic about the whole thing and, I'm going to go do a long retreat. Actually, I heard a very interesting story about this. In Dharamsala, somebody went to do a 3-year retreat, and then they came out of retreat. And one of the people, I can't remember who I heard this story from, but whoever it was, they were visiting one of their teachers, and this person who had just finished long retreat came in the room and, to visit the teacher too, and they were all talking. And after the retreatant left, the Lama said, 3 years later and same mind. Yeah. So it's it's very interesting. I find it extremely interesting to watch what people do after they do 3-year retreats. Yeah. It's not always what you would expect them to be doing. So that, that indicates kind of where they were before they did the retreat and where they were after they did the retreat, and who went deeper in their practice and who felt like, okay, I've done this, now I want to do something else for a while. Okay. Destroying self-centeredness and you compare this, let me tell you, you compare that story to Kyabje Sopa Rinpoche, who was in retreat and keeping silence and not doing very much. And then one day he was walking around and he spoke to his attendant. And his attendant said, Rinpoche, I thought you were in silent retreat. And Rinpoche said, I was, but I had a negative thought, so I'm starting the retreat all over again. One negative thought. Okay. So you can see there's different levels of practitioners. Yeah. Destroying self-centeredness and cultivating love are the means to accomplish the paramis. Bodhisattvas treat all beings as equal to themselves in importance and remain emotionally stable in all circumstances. Emotional stability. I wonder what that looks like.
Super knowledges.
Yeah, that must be one of the super knowledges. Yeah, being emotionally stable. Wow. Okay. By contemplating sentient beings as their precious children or relatives, bodhisattvas' love, compassion, and affection increase. Having subdued their own ignorance, attachment, and anger, they mature others' minds with the 4 ways of gathering disciples, causing sentient beings to enter and then complete any of the 3 vehicles. The time necessary to accomplish the perfections depends on the inclination of each bodhisattva, whether wisdom, faith, or energy is predominant. So again, talking about different faculties, bodhisattvas, different faculties. All bodhisattvas receive predictions of their awakening directly from Buddhas. This was Jazz. This is, yep. And then proceed to fulfill the perfections in the time corresponding to their inclination. Since full awakening is attained by the power of wisdom, bodhisattvas inclined towards wisdom proceed more rapidly. Okay? So I'm reading everything with the Sanskrit pronunciation because that's what I'm used to. So, bodhisattvas are a supreme field of merit, held dear by humans and non-humans, protected by deities, and unharmed by wild animals and domesticated cats. Free from malice, jealousy, competitiveness, hypocrisy, miserliness, stubbornness, and arrogance. Woo! Imagine what it would be like to be free of all those. Bodhisattva's presence in a place prevents danger and disasters. Okay, so just having a bodhisattva live in your place is some protection to the area by the force of their virtue and the merit they've created. Due to practicing the paramis, bodhisattvas have long life, enabling them to accumulate excellent qualities, deepen their meditation, and complete a multitude of virtuous actions to benefit sentient beings. They have an attractive form, drawing others to them, and are born in excellent families, okay, are influential, and have many helpers for their virtuous activities that benefit others. Yeah, so you can see that, it doesn't mean that every bodhisattva has all these conditions. His Holiness wasn't born in an influential family. He was born in a very modest family. Okay? And other, Ling Rinpoche, his mother died when he was quite young. He was put in TCV, because his father couldn't take care of him. So he lived in TCV for a while, and then they found him there. Yeah, so
The new one or the old?
the new one, the one that's 30-something now.
And what is a TCV?
Oh, Tibetan Children's Village. Yeah, so it's TCV is a combination of like an orphanage and a boarding school. Yeah, so it has kids that are orphans and kids whose parents can't take care of them, or kids who want their parents parents that want their kids to be educated there. Yeah, so there's TCVs outside of Dharamsala, or outside of McLeod Ganj, and in various places in the refugee community. One of His Holiness's sisters, I think it was Jitsun Pemala. No, his older sister was the one who was really in charge of setting them up, and now his younger sister is running them. Yeah. So they have many helpers for their virtuous activities. So you can see, when people have a virtuous intention, if they have many helpers, then they can really do so much, to benefit sentient beings. Yeah, you were telling me, Bernard was telling me at lunch that Richa Rinpoche had just built a cancer hospital in Mongolia. Yeah, so he sure needed a lot of helpers to do that. That kind of thing is not easy. So bodhisattvas are trustworthy and reliable. So sentient beings value their advice and give them authority. Okay, so we are always the ones who give people authority. Authority is not demanded. Yeah, if somebody demands authority, something isn't right. Rather, people give others authority. So we need to be wise in who we give authority and have good values ourselves so that we can select people to whom we give authority to guide us and do whatever. Yeah. Sometimes we give authority to people who are not very competent, and then we see what happens afterwards. Okay. Because their minds have been transformed into the Dharma, bodhisattvas cannot be subjugated by others, but instead subdue others through their noble qualities. So this means that a bodhisattva, you cannot manipulate a bodhisattva. Okay? You can't subjugate them by threatening them, by manipulating them, by pushing their buttons so that they'll do what you want them to do. They're people who have their own values, who have their own principles, and who live by them and will not abdicate them in order to please other people or gain popularity or something like that. Okay, hold on a second. Through these accomplishments, bodhisattvas are capable and have many opportunities to guide others in the Dharma of the three vehicles. Okay.
There's a karmic warning against harming a bodhisattva intentionally, so I assume that they can be physically subjugated, like you could lock one up in a cell.
Yeah.
So, okay, I was just, because based on that, it sounded like they're entirely free agents immune from the physical world.
No. I mean, yeah, I always think of subjugation by mental manipulation, but you're right. I mean, they threw them in prison during in the Cultural Revolution and all. So,
but does that imply that, like, potentially bodhisattvas, because of the play out of others' karma, that they would let themselves be thrown in prison, even though they're a bodhisattva and they're potentially immune to it if they were to choose so?
There's different levels of bodhisattvas, and they have different abilities, okay? Some bodhisattvas are ordinary beings. They haven't realized emptiness directly yet, okay? Other bodhisattvas, once they realize emptiness directly, have many more powers than the bodhisattvas who attain the eighth ground. Then they're free of samsara and just have subtle obscurations on the mind. So they have even more powers. So it's difficult to group all the bodhisattvas together. Okay. And by the way, everybody who is called Rinpoche in Tibetan Buddhism is not necessarily a bodhisattva. Okay, they're all called tulkus, and tulku actually means nirmanakaya. Yeah, but just because somebody's called tulku doesn't mean they are one. Okay, there's this whole way of giving titles. They give honorific titles as a way of showing respect, but it doesn't mean that that person is actually, that they don't necessarily correspond to that title, and that's why His Holiness always says, look at people's qualities, not at their titles. Yeah, and I think that's very good advice, because we get, really impressed by titles, and then we don't assess people's qualities very well. Like in this country, we get very impressed. We get very impressed with people with titles, don't we? We get very impressed with people with a lot of money. And instead of really scrutinizing and seeing what kind of human being they are, we just think, oh, well, they have power, they have money, they must be good. So, and then we give them authority, and that's our problem. Okay? Whereas often it's people, especially in the Buddhist world, people who don't stick out at all and who remain very quiet practitioners who have profound realizations. Yeah. So you can't always tell by societal things. Okay. So I wish I had a picture of Geshe Ashitopten. I talk about him a lot. Yeah. But one of my teachers whose Shemdap was also always crooked, and it was kind of old and sometimes dirty, and his socks were falling down, and his shoes were old and didn't fit his feet properly. And he had some whiskers, and, his hair wasn't always shaved and close. And he was an incredible meditator. Absolutely incredible meditator, yeah. So, but if you passed him on the street, you would say, some old monk, and you'd walk right past him. Okay. Nevertheless, we should not expect every bodhisattva to display all these benefits. Bodhisattvas manifest in whatever way benefits sentient beings according to sentient beings' karma. Thus, they may be from a lower social class, physically unattractive, or have a short life. Yeah. I remember some years ago when the principal of the dialectic school and two of his students were murdered in Dharamsala, and one of my Singaporean friends, the principal of the dialectic school, he wasn't recognized as the incarnation of anybody, but he was very well respected in the community. Anyway, one of my friends in Singapore was saying, well, if he had practiced properly, how come he got murdered? That shouldn't happen to people who practice properly. So who is this guy? Yeah, so that's the wrong way to look at things, okay? Because first of all, if somebody's an ordinary being, they still may have negative karma that may ripen in that way. And if somebody is a bodhisattva, they may, for the benefit of sentient beings, have that kind of thing, allow that kind of thing to happen. So we can't always understand everything. The result of bodhicitta and the bodhisattva's paramis is Buddhahood, with the attainment of the magnificent form body with the 32 signs and 80 marks of a great person, and the Dharmakaya, glorious with wondrous qualities such as the 10 powers. 5 of the 10 perfections in the Pali and Sanskrit traditions have the same names: generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, joyous effort, and wisdom. Unshakable resolve in the Sanskrit tradition and determination in the Pali tradition have different names but similar meanings, as do meditative stability in the Sanskrit tradition and renunciation in the Pali tradition. So I explained renunciation apparently not exactly correctly. I thought it was the renunciation of sensual desires, although it still could be that, because when you renounce sensual desires, then you're able to generate concentration very quickly. Anyway, we'll have more explanation. While truthfulness, love, and equanimity are listed as perfections only in the Pali tradition, and skillful means, power, and exalted wisdom only in the Sanskrit tradition, the meaning of each of these is found in the teachings of both traditions. Okay, even if it's not listed as one of the paramis. Dharmapala says that when seen according to their nature, the 10 perfections become 6, just like in the Sanskrit tradition, which are the 6 perfections found in the Sanskrit tradition. Mm-hmm. Thus, the great majority of the material is shared in common. The perfections taught in both traditions will be explained together. This will be followed by the perfections found in one tradition but not another. Material from Dharmapala's treatise has Pali spelling, and material from the Sanskrit tradition has Sanskrit spelling. But I'm not going to necessarily say all of that when describing it to you, because the explanations, even though something may be explained in one way or emphasized in one way in one tradition and not the other, they come to the same point, and they, it's all material for us to practice. Okay, so the perfection of generosity. So based on non-attachment and the relinquishing of miserliness, so that's the foundation for being generous. Difficult to be generous if we're attached and if we're miserly. So generosity is the mind of giving. It is of 4 types. So the first one is giving material resources. So this is the giving of possessions or money. Bodhisattvas give whatever is needed to whoever needs it. They give even if not asked. And they give a suitable amount, not just a little, so that the other person will leave them alone. I'll give you enough cat food so you stop bugging me, but actually there is for their protection, otherwise they eat too much. So. Bodhisattvas give without expecting to receive a gift, praise, or fame in return. And when there is not enough to go around, they distribute it equitably among all those in need. So bodhisattvas don't play favorites when they're generous. Okay. And this is actually, according to Vinaya, when you offer to the Sangha, you offer the same amount. If you give individual offerings, you give the same amount to every individual. Yeah, regardless of where they sit or if they have any rankings or titles or so on. The Tibetans themselves don't always do that, but this is the way it says in Vinaya, that everybody receives an equal portion. And I think that's quite good. Yeah. And bodhisattvas, they're not expecting a thank you note. They're not expecting praise. They're not expecting someone to go, oh, you're so kind. You're so generous. You're so wonderful. I love you. They just give because they take delight in giving. Yeah. So we often get tangled up when we give because if somebody doesn't say thank you, we feel a bit offended. Yeah. I gave something to that person. Can't they at least say thank you? Yeah. What I've noticed sometimes is not that the giver feels thank you, but very often people who receive gifts don't even bother to acknowledge the receipt of the gift. Yeah, and I think that is a problem on the part of the recipient, because when somebody gives you a gift, it's only regular human manners to let them know that you received their gift okay. Don't you think? Yeah? Even if you don't want to say thank you, you let them know that you received it. And saying thank you isn't very hard. But from the side of the giver, they don't expect any of that. But I know sometimes I've had to write to people and say, I sent you this or that. Did you receive it? And I feel like, gee, because I want to know, did they get it or did it get lost? But I kind of feel like, gee, it's just common manners, at least the way my mother raised me. Okay, maybe there's different mothers, but whenever I received something, I sat down and hand wrote a thank you letter to whoever received it. I see some other nodding heads in here. Okay, but I think that was a good habit that my mom taught me, instead of just, yeah, I got something fantastic, forget about who gave it to me, Okay, so bodhisattvas do not give things that may cause harm or stimulate afflictions to arise in others' minds. So they don't give weapons, intoxicants, pornography, and dangerous chemicals, among other things. Okay, so it's not the practice of generosity to share your dope with somebody else or share your child pornography pictures with somebody else. That is not the practice of generosity, okay? I say this because sometimes people don't think correctly. Bodhisattvas give only what is appropriate for the recipient and conducive for the other's well-being. Yeah, so you don't give them gifts that they don't have the capacity yet to really handle. Yeah, which is why aside from the whole spread of guns in this country, which I'm appalled with, is the fact that parents or relatives often give children guns as presents, for your birthday present. In some communities, you get a gun or a rifle. And I'm thinking, is that really the appropriate gift to give to a child? Does a child know how to manage that? And the adults usually say, well, we teach them gun safety. But, kids, on the other hand, are not always meticulous with things. And they see so many people die on television and then get up and walk away that they may not understand that when people die, they're really dead.
I had lots of friends in high school who had pink shotguns, like bright pink. Like, why would a gun company make a bright pink shotgun unless to sell to like a young girl?
Yeah. Yeah. Girl shotguns. Bright pink, probably with roses painted on them. Yeah. Should bodhisattvas notice they are becoming attached to a particular object, they immediately give it away. Oh, my goodness. We should try practicing that for a week, Like whenever you notice you're getting attached to something, immediately give it away. Yeah?
Sorry, 2 in a row. You guys will have to do a laptop exchange.
Oh.
Give each other their laptops.
Yeah.
Just keep the thumb drive.
Okay. When asked for things, they contemplate the disadvantages of clinging and see the person asking as a close friend, helping to free him from bondage to these items and giving him the opportunity to be generous. So when somebody, is asking for something, bodhisattvas don't say, oh, this person is such a nuisance. They say this person is helping free me from the bond of clinging and enabling me to practice generosity and create merit. Bodhisattvas also give their own body by serving others or giving parts of their body, but they do this only when it is suitable. If they hesitate to give their body, they should think that if people in need of the various parts of a medicinal tree were to come and take them, the tree would not complain. Similarly, since this body has the nature of dukkha, and since they have entrusted it, as a bodhisattva, you've entrusted your body to the service of others, there is no sense clinging to it, thinking, this is mine, this is I, this is myself. Yeah. So somebody has some awareness of no self. Arya bodhisattvas are able to give their body without hesitation or fear. Practitioners below this level are allowed to give only parts of their body if doing so does not jeopardize their lives. It is wiser for ordinary bodhisattvas to maintain their precious human lives and use them to practice the Dharma. Meanwhile, they can aspire to give their bodies in the future after they become Aryas. Arya bodhisattvas who give their bodies do not experience physical suffering due to their great merit, and do not experience mental suffering due to their wisdom. Ordinary bodhisattvas feel physical suffering when giving parts of their body. However, the pain they experience serves only to intensify their compassion for other sentient beings who experience far greater pain in unfortunate realms. And as I was reading that sentence, a spider jumped onto the book. So a sentient being who experiences far greater pain in unfortunate realms. We should practice giving possessions as much as we can, making offerings to the 3 jewels each day, offering our food before eating, and giving to those in need. So generosity is always the first practice prescribed because it's the easiest one. And it's the one that's valued in secular society and by all religious traditions. Yeah. And just common people, what do people do? They share food, don't they? Yeah. And you just share what you have with other people. And it's interesting, sometimes the people who have the least share the most. And the people who have a lot have a difficult time giving. That the people who have very little often are the most generous and share what they have. Whereas sometimes the people who have a lot find it very difficult to be generous. Yeah, it depends on the person, but I've seen this in many cases.
They've actually done a study where people with bigger cars will not stop for pedestrians as much as people with smaller or beat-up cars. And that's a form of generosity in my mind.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh. Give it...
Every time I make any substantial amount of money, I end up giving and sharing it with all my friends. But then I don't have any money, and things get really hard.
Yeah. So you also need balance?
I don't have that.
Yeah.
At all.
You need it. Okay. So generosity doesn't mean that you give everything away, so much so that then you're impoverished. Okay. But you keep what you need, because generosity isn't the amount you give, it's the intention to give. So you can share with your friends, but maybe share a little bit less so that you have what you need.
Sounds so hard.
You need, do you need what do you call it? Financial advice. No, he needs a trustee. Yeah.
I think those cost money.
You could probably get one free, Doing practices in which we imagine giving our body possessions and virtues of the past, present, and future are also beneficial, especially if we reflect that the giver, recipient, and gift exist dependently, and are empty of inherent existence. Okay, then the second kind of giving is giving of fearlessness. And this is offering protection to those who are frightened, lost, or in danger. It calms sentient beings' minds and shields them from physical suffering. So especially, people who are frightened, lost, in danger, travelers who don't know where they're going, little kids who are lost. I remember one day I was taking a walk in, was it Discovery Park? And there was a group of little kids, like this big, wandering around, and there was no adult near them. And I said, what's happening? Because they looked a little bit scared. And they said, we were here with our class, but they went on ahead and we got left behind. And so I said, well, which direction were they walking in? And so, I wanted to help these kids find who they were looking to. And I noticed one of the kids, clearly their mother and father had told them, never follow strangers. Because this kid was so scared to go with me, and yet she had no choice because she was lost. Yeah. But, finally we found the rest of the group in the parking lot. I was astounded that the leader hadn't, noticed. Yeah. And I should have called the center. I don't know if I had the name of where those kids, the school or whatever they were from, but I wish I had called and reported that, because that's really not good on the part of the people. But it was nice being able to help those kids, but I just felt so bad for the little kid who was scared to come with me, because what could I say? Their mother had given them good advice. But in this case, the good advice shouldn't have been followed. Okay. Then the third giving is giving love. So that includes volunteering in social welfare projects, consoling the grieving, and encouraging others' good qualities. And then the fourth type of generosity is giving the Dharma, which is giving the correct Dharma teachings that lead to well-being and peace in this and future lives, and to liberation and full awakening. Bodhisattvas introduce the Dharma to sentient beings who have not met it, and mature the minds of those who are already practicing. They give discourses on the three vehicles according to the disposition of the audience. When sharing the Dharma, they do not expect special treatment, respect, or offerings, but simply give advice or instructions to others as one close friend to another. So that's what His Holiness always says, that he sees himself when he's, quote, a teacher, when he's sitting on the teaching seat, as just like an older brother or sister who's sharing what he knows with other people. Yeah. Whereas those of us who don't have His Holiness's qualities, I'm a Dharma teacher. His Holiness doesn't call himself a teacher. The rest of us, I'm a Dharma teacher. Okay. Generosity has many benefits. It is the cause to receive resources. Making offerings to the three jewels creates a karmic connection that will enable us to meet holy beings who will guide us on the path. Okay, so it's not just, here's a present or whatever, but it's, we're making that link with holy beings so that in the future we will be able to meet them and, feel a connection with them so that they can guide us on the path. And that's really, really, really important to do. Yeah, because who you meet, especially at the beginning of your practice. And then all during the middle and end of your practice too. It's quite important. And so we want to make sure to make strong karmic links with people who are good, that we consider good teachers in this lifetime, so that in future lifetimes we can meet them. Yeah, because if you meet Charlatananda and you don't have a lot of wisdom, difficult. Yeah, difficult, really difficult. And you see sometimes what happens when people meet Charlatananda and they don't have wisdom. And I just know for myself, when I started out, I was so naive. I didn't know anything about anything. Yeah, I knew less than anything. And I look now and, I could have been easily taken on a ride because I was so naive and innocent. And I just look and I think it's really my good fortune that I met very excellent teachers from the get-go. Yeah, because otherwise I could have met who knows what and be taken in and done who knows what. Yeah.
I don't think it was your good fortune. I think it was your good karma.
Yeah, well, I see it as both, but especially fortune because, yeah, because I had no idea of karma when I was starting out. Uh-huh. So I think I was very fortunate. If we think of the benefits in giving and the disadvantages of stinginess, but still cannot bring ourselves to give to a person who has asked for something, the Buddha tells us to humbly explain to them. Maybe we should memorize this part. Yeah, when somebody asks for something, we don't want to give it to them. So we explain, at this point, my strength is meager and my roots of virtue are immature. I still have the perspective of grasping, and am stuck in grasping things as I and mine. And so, good person, I beg you to forgive me and not to be upset. In the future, I will act, accomplish, and exert myself in order to fulfill your desires and those of all beings. Being generous does not mean abolishing all the poverty in the world. If we have the wish to give but lack resources, there is no fault. Each situation in which we are requested to help needs to be examined individually in light of our motivation, capability, and the repercussions of our action. And then the perfection of ethical conduct. Ethical conduct is the attitude of abandoning all thoughts of harming others through relinquishing the self-centered attitude. There are 3 types of ethical conduct. Okay, so it's really abandoning harm, which is the bottom line of what practicing the Dharma is. And those of you who've taken refuge in the refuge guidelines, you remember, under taking refuge from taking refuge in the Buddha, don't harm any living being. So the first of the 3 is restraining from destructive actions, entails abandoning the 10 non-virtues and abiding in whatever precepts and commitments we have taken. It is the best protection from being harmed. Okay, you don't want to be harmed? Yeah, don't create the karma to be harmed by harming others. Yeah. So those people who say they need guns to feel safe have absolutely no understanding of karma and its effects. Yeah, and in fact, probably will wind up creating the cause to be less safe in this life and to feel less safe in future lives. Okay, if you really want to be safe, don't harm others. That's it. Okay, karma functions. So it is the best protection from being harmed and is more effective than thousands of warheads and the best bodyguards. Ethical conduct gives us sovereignty over our body, speech, and mind. In other words, our body, speech, and mind are not exploited by ignorance, anger, and clinging attachment. We have sovereignty over them. We can manage them. Those with pure ethical conduct exude what is called the fragrance of virtue, making them more attractive to others and thus more effective in benefiting them. You know, and it's often true, people who keep very good ethical conduct, when you meet them, you have a sense of trust around them. You know, there's not this, you know, but there's a sense of, oh, here's somebody who's trustworthy. But they say they actually have a fragrance too that doesn't come from deodorant. If afflictions arise in the mind of threatening their virtue, bodhisattvas reflect. Okay, so this is good for us to learn too. Didn't I resolve to attain awakening for the benefit of all beings? To do this, I must teach the Dharma, and to be a trustworthy guide, I must have a pure character and possess attainments such as the jhanas and wisdom. All these are founded upon pure ethical conduct. Therefore, I should protect my ethical conduct. Okay, so in the Pali tradition, you know, these little bits where it's sharing how the bodhisattva talks to themselves and how you explain things to yourself, it's quite good, isn't it? You know, yeah, you're on the verge of just acting out of afflictions, and then you say, "Hey, hold on! Didn't I say I was going to benefit sentient beings? And to do that, I need to teach the Dharma, and to teach the Dharma, I need to be a reliable guide, and to be a reliable guide, I need to be an ethical individual." So is this action that I'm about to do, does it really fit in with being an ethical individual or not? Thus, bodhisattvas strengthen their ethical resolve, personal integrity, and consideration for others. Okay, so their ethical resolve, so the resolve, the conscientiousness, the wish to act ethically. Then personal integrity is when we refrain from doing a negative action because we have self-respect and we think, I don't want to be the kind of person who acts like that. Or you respect your own Dharma practice. You know, I respect the Dharma. I don't want to be a practitioner who acts like that and goes against the Dharma. So this is a virtuous, one of the 11 virtuous mental factors. So a very important one to cultivate. Yeah, so the sense of your own integrity so that you can say, you know, I've thought about this, I don't want to act in that way, and I'm not going to, you know, even if there's a lot of social pressure. And then the other one that's mentioned here is consideration for others. So this, again, is another one of the 11 virtuous mental factors. And this is where we, restrain our negative action because we don't want to adversely harm somebody else, or we don't want to make the Dharma look bad, or we don't want to harm somebody else's faith in the Dharma. Okay, so if people know that we're a Dharma practitioner and then we're just acting, you know, doing all sorts of horrible things, then many people, unfortunately, lose faith in the Dharma, you know. And while we shouldn't, you know, from our side, lose faith in the Dharma simply because there are a few people who don't act properly, Yeah, it's not wise if you have faith and you see the beauty in the Dharma to lose faith because of a few people's actions. Yeah, so we should not do that. But knowing that other people do that, then we should refrain from being the person that instigates that kind of response in them. Yeah. So, because that can really harm people. And you see, in the last few months, there's been one big scandal involving one Tibetan Lama. And, some people have really lost their faith in the Dharma because of it. Now, there's a whole variety of reactions, but some people, it's really harmed their faith. And then that's really sad when that happens. Yeah, because here's somebody who had a precious human life, contacted the Dharma, benefited from the Dharma, yeah, but because of the behavior of one individual, then they said, I don't want to have anything to do with the Dharma again. So that's a faulty way of thinking on behalf of that person. But you can certainly understand how they could do that. So we have a responsibility to other sentient beings to not behave in obnoxious ways that would cause them to do that. Because that's so harmful. That harms them not just in this life, but for many, many future lives that can harm them. Okay. So thus bodhisattvas strengthen their ethical resolve, personal integrity, and consideration for others. They take layer monastic precepts. They avoid transgressing their precepts by exercising mindfulness and introspective awareness, and they purify all transgressions. Okay, so when they have transgressions, they don't just say, well, it doesn't really matter, but they do purification. Bodhisattvas guard the 4 gates through which ethical errors occur. So the first one is ignorance regarding what to practice and abandon. Okay, so you don't know what's virtuous, what's non-virtuous. So what do I practice? What do I abandon? That's, if you don't know that, then ethical errors are going to happen. Second is a lack of respect for the precepts. So not thinking that ethical conduct is important. So you may know what is virtuous and what isn't, but you don't think it's that important. And if you've taken precepts, you say, well, it doesn't really matter. I did that when I was on summer vacation, when I was at, some Abbey someplace. I took it, but, that was a long time ago and it doesn't really matter now. So not respecting the precepts, which is actually a way of disrespecting yourself. And disrespecting the virtuous part of yourself that wanted to take precepts. The third gate through which ethical errors occur is carelessness. So we're just careless, we don't monitor our own behavior and act which way according to whatever idea comes in our mind. And then the fourth is strong afflictions that overpower the mind. So sometimes we know what to practice and abandon. We respect our precepts. We're not careless, but some really strong affliction comes and just overtakes our mind, and we're just carried away by the wave of affliction. Okay? So bodhisattvas guard against these 4 gates. And they practice the antidotes to these 4. So here's what we need to practice. First, to overcome ignorance regarding what to practice and abandon, they study the 10 virtues and the precepts. That's how you learn. Okay? To overcome the lack of respect for the precepts, or not thinking ethical conduct is important, they develop faith and respect for the precepts by understanding the disadvantages of unethical behavior and the benefits of ethical conduct. So that's how you overcome the second one. Then to overcome carelessness, they are careful and conscientious in their actions by maintaining mindfulness and introspective awareness. And to counteract the one of being overwhelmed by afflictions, they apply antidotes to the afflictions. So there's a lot in here for us to think about. Don't you think? Okay, then the second kind of ethical conduct is collecting positive qualities. And this is taking every opportunity to enhance the collection of merit and wisdom in order to progress on the path. Bodhisattvas respect their spiritual mentors and those worthy of respect, offer service to them, and care for them during illness. They appreciate advice and instructions given by the wise and rejoice in the merit of others. With gratitude for those who have helped them, they benefit and honor others in return. So in all these things, you read each one, and each one you can stop and meditate on and think, how can I put that into practice in my life? Yeah. So lots of things just to stop instead. It's a list here, and we tend to go through lists quickly. But, okay, how do I appreciate advice and instructions given by the wise? Yeah. How can I train myself to rejoice in the merit of others? How can I cultivate gratitude for those who have helped me? Okay, how can I benefit and honor others in return? So thinking about each of those and making examples in our life of how we can do this. So this is something to meditate on in your meditation sessions. Okay. Then the third kind of ethical conduct, benefiting sentient beings in need, involves caring for the ill and the injured. So again, this is many different things, but we should stop and meditate on each one, how to do it. Okay, caring for the ill and the injured, comforting the grieving, giving wise advice to those about to act recklessly, helping others in danger, facilitating reconciliation and forgiveness. Yeah, so each one of those to think, how can I do that in my life? It often entails aiding the blind, deaf, and those who are physically or mentally challenged, helping those without faith to cultivate it, teaching the lazy how to be energetic, and instructing those plagued by the 5 hindrances in their antidotes. Okay, again, many different ways to practice this kind of ethical conduct of benefiting sentient beings. Bodhisattvas rehabilitate those with faulty ethical conduct, addictions, and criminal records. In short, in whatever way their companionship, knowledge, or abilities can benefit others, they employ these without hesitation. So bodhisattvas, have, because of their equanimity, they are open and they benefit everybody, no matter what status, legal status, for example, that person is. And so that's one reason why the Abbey does prison work, and people write to us and they want to learn the Dharma and they're longing for the Dharma. And so we write letters back. Yeah, we don't just say, oh, here's some guy, what a jerk, he wound up in prison, lock him in the cell, throw away the key, just another somebody who's mooching off the state, getting 3 hots and a cot and complaining because, they can't get out of their cell when they deserve to stay in there. I mean, that's how many people in this country look at the incarcerated. with that kind of, just so disparaging. And actually, they're just people like the rest of us, except they got caught. Yeah, because I'm sure, okay, I'm not, certainly things like murder and grand theft and stuff like that, yeah. But how many of us have never broken the law? Yeah, have you never broken the law? Yeah, I jaywalk. Yeah, and I have my own little history with intoxicants, that were illegal. Yeah. Anybody else jaywalk? She doesn't.
But I have been influenced, I do now.
Oh, you do?
What do you know about jaywalking?
Well, it's illegal, so technically you could get a ticket.
It's meant to protect you.
Yeah.
It's legal where I live.
You,
Tacoma specifically.
huh?
In Tacoma specifically, it's illegal to jaywalk.
It is?
Yeah, it's great. I do it in front of cops.
So does thermal children. Washington, D.C.
Yes.
DC, you get tickets. Like they'll write it. Most places they give you a warning and slap on the wrist.
So I guess I was lucky, huh? They didn't ticket me. They were too scared by looking at a lady with a bald head.
They thought she had cancer and didn't want it, but impose any more suffering on her.
Yeah.
And they probably thought she's just coming out of chemo, so that they're
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I think the work we do for the incarcerated is wonderful, and we learn so much from them. Unbelievable what you learn from working with incarcerated people. Okay. Being judicious, bodhisattvas are accessible to others, but only at the right time, in a suitable place, and in a proper situation. So don't think you can just walk in on any bodhisattva and they're going to, pay attention to you. Because, they have the thing, the right time, suitable place, proper situation. Yeah, bodhisattvas neither push their help and advice on others, nor refuse them when needed. Okay, but when not needed, they don't give. Okay, so if we're kind of capable of making our own decisions, but we, go to a bodhisattva, what do I do? Help me. They'll turn around and say, use your own wisdom, dear. That's what Lama Yeshe used to say to us. In guiding others, bodhisattvas behave only in ways that increase others' good qualities and virtuous actions, and avoid abusing or humiliating others. As much as possible, bodhisattvas act in accordance with others' wishes and needs, as long as these do not harm themselves or others, and do not distract from Dharma practice. Okay, so it's not the bodhisattvas will just go along with any wish that anybody has, They're very discerning about these and judicious about these things. The three types of ethical conduct occur in a fixed sequence. Restraint from harm enables the foundation for engaging in virtuous actions, okay, which in turn enables us to work for the welfare of sentient beings. Because we can't work for the welfare of sentient beings if we haven't stopped harming them. Yeah. Okay, so we develop these three in order. When hearing of the wondrous deeds and spiritual accomplishments of previous bodhisattvas, bodhisattvas do not become discouraged or overwhelmed, but reflect Those great beings were once human beings too. They trained in the paramis and fulfilled the collections, thus attaining their great abilities. I too will train as they did and attain the same realizations and abilities to benefit others. In this way, bodhisattvas generate faith and inspire themselves. Okay? So this one we should also copy out. Yeah, if we just get, become discouraged, this is what we should say to ourselves. Bodhisattvas do not become arrogant due to the purity of their ethical conduct, but always remain humble, concealing their virtue and revealing their faults. So bodhisattvas don't go around with their nose in their head. I keep such perfect ethical conduct. I keep my precepts so well. They don't have that attitude at all. And if anything, they conceal their virtue, and any of their faults they readily reveal. They don't try and conceal their faults. Concealment is one of the non-virtuous mental factors. Bodhisattvas are content, do not complain. Oh, shucks. And are not conceited or manipulative. They are honest and direct, yet tactful. Okay, so they don't just blurt out anything. They're tactful. Cultivating the unpolluted wisdom that does not grasp the inherent existence of the sphere of three, the person abandoning the destructive action, and the being who was to be the recipient of the harm, makes bodhisattva's practice of ethical conduct supramundane. So they always seal it with that awareness of emptiness and dependent arising. Bodhisattvas dedicate their merit for full awakening, not for a fortunate rebirth, release from samsara, or attainment of the super-knowledges. Dhammapala says they dedicate it only for the purpose of becoming an omniscient Buddha in order to enable all beings to acquire the incomparable adornment of ethical conduct. He may have said omniscient, because he was later. Yeah?
There was this question, I think, from Christina about if in the Pali tradition they also have this, or Tracy, if they have Tonglen or something like that, if they have practices to cultivate bodhicitta such as Tonglen, giving and taking. And there's here an indicator, this is written here, doing practices in which we imagine giving our body possessions, virtues, just like, and then also with the thought of the three spheres being empty of inherent existence.
Yeah. So there's certainly some overlap, huh? Mm-hmm. They may not call it the practice of taking and giving. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But in the way they think, that's the way bodhisattvas naturally think. Yeah, so I haven't heard of a specific, taking and giving practice described. But if you think how are bodhisattvas going to think, then that's the way they're going to think. Okay, so lots to contemplate, huh? So don't think you have to do it all today. Just start and then, continue when the course is over. It isn't like when the course is over, you put the book away and don't think about any of these things again. You start now, you gradually continue.